Let's talk about education. I'm originally from Cameroon, for those of you who don't know, and I am what you would call an educated person, right? Even though I ended up realizing at a very late, stage in my life how uneducated I actually was. So most of what people call education is really partial education, because education is more of a spectrum. There is no, and I'm not necessarily referring to different, different schools of education. Like, I'm not necessarily referring to like philosophy or mathematics or chemistry or science. That's not what I mean. That's all in the formal education. And so there happens to be a different kind of education that is called informal education that most people disregard. They insult, they spit on, they step on, they undermine, they undervalue. But at the end of the day, what I ended up realizing is that not only that form of education is very powerful, it may actually be more valuable in certain respects with respect to formal education. What Steve Harvey calls education is just formal education. Now, here's one thing that I really disagree with Steve Harvey on. Steve Harvey says, I have no education, but I think he's wrong. He has a lot of education. Maybe he doesn't realize it. And if Steve Harvey ends up looking at this video, lots of love and respect to you, great sir, but you're highly educated. I just think you don't realize how educated you are, because there happens to be two kinds of education. There's the formal education, the one you get in college, the one you get in the university, the one you get in high school, the one you get in middle school, and then there's the informal education, what some people describe as street smart, which is what Steve Harvey is. This guy is really street smart. He's very talented, very brilliant comedian, but for some reason, he doesn't view that as education. I have no idea why, but that's actually education. And it turns out that this education is actually more valuable. And the reason it is highly valuable is because it's always updated. What do I mean? In the real world, only what works. Because when you are in a formal educational space, you have a textbook, you have a curricula that was already created for you that you stick to, and it takes a while for this stuff to get updated. Versus you in the real world, what you're learning is what is happening, and so you actually have a heads up on people that are so-called formally educated. And this is why craftsmanship has always been. This is also true for formal education, but it's only true for a small minority of formal education. The bigger majority of formal education tends to lag by a whole lot, sometimes years, sometimes tens of years behind what is actually updated. Take for instance, the educational system in Cameroon. I remember when we were still in the equivalent of middle school and secondary school and high school, in our science classes, we used to draw cockroaches. We used to draw the digestive system. I used to be able to draw the skin, the digestive system. That is what we called science. That to us, that was, but you know how outdated those things are? You know how much more we know about the skin, about cockroaches, about insects nowadays? Not only that, other countries, aka China, kids are literally learning how to write computer code while we're learning how to draw cockroaches, while we're out here still trying to do algorithms or maybe learn some type of differential equation. Now, there's two parts to this. It's true that learning pure science, it always has value. However, you want to be updated, because if you're learning science as true as it is and someone else is learning science but is learning the latest science, person is always going to have an upper hand on you. I don't care how you play, there's no scenario in which you come out on top, because being updated is always more valuable than whatever skill you have. Being updated is like having a tip that, okay, this stock is gonna go up. You are updated, you already have the information. All you have to do is act on that information, versus me sitting there and analyzing the whole stock market. I could never have an upper hand on the guy that has the tip. We need to rethink what we call education and understand that education is not just about learning for learning's sake. Now, the second part of the problem is, far too often, especially in my country, Cameroon, people just get into academia and never get out. Part of the reason I didn't ever want to become a teacher is because I saw how teachers ended up in my home country. Teachers were poor, they dressed poorly, they were mistreated, they were looked down upon. Even students didn't like their teachers. Teacher was just sucked to be a teacher. And so the second problem with education, because the first problem with education is it's completely misunderstood. There's a whole other pool of education, which is called formal education, that is completely not talked about. Nobody even gives it any credence or any value. The second problem is that people sometimes in both spheres, formal and informal, don't even understand, but this is really more true for formal education. Don't understand that when you get educated, it has to be for a reason. You cannot be getting educated for the sake of education. And so when you get into education and just get the next degree and then the next degree and then the next degree, the question becomes why? Why are you getting the master's degree? Why are you getting the second master's? Why are you getting the PhD? Wait, are you getting it because you want to get a higher paying job? I don't know. For most people, that's probably the reason. And so if you are doing this long education thing just because you're trying to make money, that means you got the world backwards. And it takes me back to the point I made. You need to understand the system and how it actually works. That's where you gotta start. And so education plays in here because people misunderstand informal education, and then people even misunderstand the formal education. That's really messed up. People just get caught up. Now, it's also true that not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Of course, you need people to fill in the work positions, you know. People need to be in a company for the company to work. Not everybody can be Elon Musk, right? You need one Elon Musk, I need a whole lot of you and I. Trust me, that's just how the world is set up. So get rid of this idea that, oh, you can do anything, you can be anything you want. That is true, but not for everybody. Think about it. Do you really think you can be Elon Musk, you and I? And I'm not being pessimistic, I'm not undermining my capabilities, but how many Elon Musk does the world actually need? Because the world ends up getting what it needs. It's a system. The system is very, very real. Like, it has real needs. And if there's no need, nobody's gonna fill that need. The need is like a gap, and then you fill the gap. Now, I know you could create that gap. How many Teslas do you really think the world needs? How many founders at that level? And so you need to rethink your education and figure out why the hell you're getting the education you're getting, because maybe you actually don't need it. Maybe you already have the skills, you just don't know what to do with it yet, which is a whole different conversation. So are you educated? Do you even understand what education is? Now, what are you going to do with the education that you already have? What are you going to do with it?